Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who is confident there is more revenue for sports from digital, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan, and you are listening to Sports Geek. Welcome to episode 344 of Sports Geek. In this CEO series episode, I chat with Tim Silvers from the Adelaide Footy Club. Thank you very much for listening. You might be doing so on sportsgeekhq.com, or you might be doing it on your favourite podcast platform. I prefer Pocket Cast myself, but we are available on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. As always, I love hearing from podcast listeners. You can send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com, or reach me on most socials at Sean Callanan or at SportsGeek. You can reach me. I hope you enjoy this chat with the current CEO for the Adelaide Crows, a long-time AFL industry veteran, Tim Silvers. Very happy to welcome Tim Silvers. He is the CEO of the Adelaide Football Club in the AFL, known as the Adelaide Crows. Tim, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Sean. It's great to be here. See you on the screen.
Appreciate it. As I do normally, I always ask people how they got their start in sports. How did you get your first gig and your first foray in the world of sports business?
Good question. I was a sports nut when I was a kid. All I wanted to do was play AFL, play NBA, play anything, any ball sport I could get my hands on. I moved a lot of states. I played a lot of different sports when I was a kid. But my first foray into sports was I actually got an AFL traineeship, so the sport I'm in within the AFL. When I was 18, I took the plunge rather than going to university, which was my parents' plan, was that I did an AFL traineeship in sports administration. So I worked a couple of days a week and also did a sports admin course at the time, which, if I'm honest, was pretty Mickey Mouse. But it did teach me a bit about hard work. And, I was working at the State Swim Centre at the time. I had a host employer as well as studying. And, you had to work at 6 a.m. It taught me a lot about work ethic, and also taught me that if I wanted to make my way up in my career, I probably need to do a little bit more study. So at the end of that 12 months, which was a good grounding, I did go in and did some university studies for a number of years after that.
And so those university studies, was there a particular stream or topic that interests you that you dove in from a university study to get into sport?
Yeah, as I said, sports was the big key, and one of the new courses that was available in Australia at that time, I think we were the first uni, was Deakin University. So there was a commerce or a business degree, but I majored in sports management, which was the first time it had been available. As a well-known coach who was sort of the leader here in Australia, David Parkin, who was one of the forefathers of it, and threw myself in, really enjoyed it, met some really good people, some like-minded people. And while I was there, I continued to work part-time through sport, and I look back and think, you're going to work so much during your career, you're going to work for potentially 50 years to get some good times at uni, enjoy yourself when you're a kid, and also study, because even though it's just a piece of paper, it did help me get some stepping stones in my career as I developed.
And so one of your first gigs in the, we call the AFL system, or Clubland as it's known, was that the Hawks? What was your entry into the Hawks way back when?
Yeah, well, what I did, if I backtrack just a tiny bit, I worked my first actual job when I came out of uni was at the Melbourne Sports and Aquatic Centre, and that was a major sports centre here in Victoria that had just been open. I was going to run the Commonwealth Games. So I got an entry-level job there and worked in membership and worked in payroll and a variety of different things. Loved it. And again, cut my teeth through that. But I was desperate to get into AFL. I wanted to be an AFL footballer. I played a lot of amateur football in my time, but an opportunity came up with the Hawks as a payroll manager, which was step back for me in my career. I think at the age of 26, took the job as a payroll manager, which was at Hawthorn Footy Club. They were based in an old suburban ground, Glenferrie Oval at the time. And my first foray into sports was in this old ground, and my first office was literally a broom closet that had been redesigned as an office. So it wasn't all the thrills that I was looking for, but what I saw at that club in my first year, there was a heap of change, like a lot of change. That was 2004. In came a new CEO. One coach went out, a new one came in. There was potential overthrow of the president, and another pillar, that general manager of footy, had also changed over, all in my first 6 months. So it was tumultuous, but I did see a club that went through a reset, made some harsh decisions, but some strong decisions, and those new 4 leaders that came in helped chart the future of the footy club.
And so your long career at the Hawks, but very much taking those steps up, a couple of years in a row around in that finance part of the Hawks. How much was that? Like, this is, early 2000s, 2004 to, 2009, like as the business of AFL started to really blossom and the finance side of footy started to really blossom. Did that really give you that, hey, this is the blueprint of how footy clubs are run, because you're looking at the P&L all the time?
No doubt it did. I wasn't set on being an accountant per se. Like I started in sports management and marketing, but I did see an opportunity within finance, especially when I started at the club, to go in as payroll, that there's an opportunity to run the finances where you get a good cross-section of every part of the business. So you understand the business of sport, the business of the footy club, the members, the sponsorship, but also the footy department. So you'd be across every dollar that was spent, and you were sort of business partner in every part of the club. So I really enjoyed it. Had to work hard. I studied to be a CPA, certified practicing accountant, during that time. So it gave me the opportunity, after doing sort of, I'd say 5 years of really hard work, but basically understanding the business from start to finish, to allow me opportunities to grow and to come onto the executive. And I also saw some massive change of that footy club that went from, it was under all sorts of pressure in 2004. I remember they had a crowd of about 11,000 people against Port Adelaide in 2004, which was crisis, that the club was under all sorts of pressure, and to see it commit to a rebuild, and then, salute for a premiership in 2008.
And so going through that time, success on field does, help roll out new projects, roll out new initiatives. You talked about, your first office being a broom closet and in a suburban ground. The Hawks were looking to move and change base and move out to Waverley. That is all, again, like you said, it's all in the finances, the planning and that was required to make those moves and look at those expansion plans. That was a key part of your role in the finance side of what you were doing?
Yeah, it was a massive move to move from Glenferrie Oval, a suburban ground, to Waverley Park, which had just been vacated as a VFL/AFL venue. So it was an exciting opportunity. It was a bit further out, 23 k's out from the city, but it was terrific in terms of getting space, opportunity to grow, elite facilities. It was well thought out, got terrific, and I can't lay claim to it, but there was terrific commercial deals on how the club was attracted there through the local council and the state government to persuade the Hawks to go there. And it became the home of the Hawks thereafter. And that club wanted to be a destination club to attract the best players, staff and coaches. And I've seen how that had a great effect on that club, and how that club was able to bring in traded in and free agent targets over the period of time. I know there was success, and success brings success, but also having a great facility was what I thought was a key plank of that.
And then in 2017, you stepped up as interim CEO for a short period to give you a bit of a taste of the role as CEO. What was it like? that first shot at being a CEO of an AFL club?
It was great. I look back on it and thought it was a bit of a whirlwind. The prior year, Stuart Fox was the CEO, and he did a Harvard course or a Stanford course, I think it was, and it went for about 7 or 8 weeks during the season. So I had that opportunity where I was in the chair for 7 or 8 weeks, but he was always still just a phone call away, even though he was on a different time. So I had that opportunity the year before, and in the end, the interim CEO role was for about 4 or 5 months. And look, I loved it. That was my taste for it. And I'd been on the executive, I think, for about 6 years at that stage, and I wanted to be a CEO, but I wasn't desperate for it. I just thought, these things might come. But once I was in the chair, and once you had the responsibility of being in charge, I started to really sharpen my focus and thought, what do I need to do to be a CEO full-time? How can I get this gig? I know there's only 18 CEOs in the country. What can I do to give myself the best opportunity to take my career to the next level? And that hadn't been my focus necessarily, but it certainly sharpened it from then on.
And I think the time we met, you were the COO of the Hawks. Did that start giving you that wider remit? I mean, you still had your finance hat on. You were still looking at the numbers, but looking at it, in a COO role, was it just give you a bit more variety and it give you a bit more breadth in the role and a bit more understanding of what the other parts of the club and how they operated from a COO that, and the same from a CEO point of view?
But what I can always say about the footy club for Hawthorn is they gave me wonderful opportunities throughout my whole career. So even before I was in the COO role, I was always given opportunities to look after a variety of different portfolios. That the club had 2 different hospitality venues that I managed for 7 to 8 years, looked after the second tier club for 7 to 8 years as well. Given opportunities within footy strategy as well as list management, also the Tasmanian operations, which was another state, and opportunities across all variety of commercial. So what the CEOs there and the board provided for me in opportunities was just terrific. It gave me opportunity to, like I said, when I was in the finance role, I was crunching the numbers, but it also gave me leadership across all portfolios. So by the time I felt like I'd crossed everything, and especially the help support the potential move for Dingley, for the Hawthorn Footy Club, it just gave me what I thought was a great cross-section, a good grounding. I've been at a really good club that had success. I felt like after a period of time that I was ready to take the next step.
And you said before, there's only 18 roles for a CEO club in the AFL, and in 2021 you've come across Adelaide to the Crows. A big move, moving states, moving to a new club, and then also where footy was coming out of COVID and the whole industry looking at from a recovery point of view and how do you get things back. What were those first couple of weeks in the chair at Adelaide like?
I talked about it being a whirlwind, being the interim for a while. It was certainly a whirlwind at Adelaide. I couldn't be more thankful to the club for giving me the opportunity. I did have some time during 2020 to think about potentially a move into state if there was a club CEO's role available. I'd spoken to my wife and the family because we were in lockdown for basically 6 months. We had plenty of time to chat. But what it would be like to move to South Australia, Western Australia and some other parts of the country. And we had made the decision as collectively that if the opportunity came up that we would move. But it just happened so quickly. It was, I've been approached by Adelaide and it was late February and sort of worked out I'd go for the role. But 3 weeks later I was in Adelaide and it was our first game and, I was just thrown in. So it was terrific. Had a great opportunity, but it was a different market and it was at a different state. So I had to build up my network here. Had to understand the footy club. We're just still going through COVID. 2020 was a tough year, but 2021 was still a heap of challenges. The club had lost. We cut about 40% of our staff, so we had a bit of a shoestring of a staffing portfolio. When I got here, we were $6 million in debt. I was proud to say the club didn't go to the league and ask for money, but we gone to bankers and got some significant debt. So it was challenging, but I wouldn't change it for a second. I needed to get to understand the people here at the footy club had wonderful people, had motivated people, had driven people, and they just, I suppose, needed a bit of a spark to get through the COVID and the reaction. And in terms of the footy club, I came into a club on field that had finished bottom of the ladder the year before, and they never finished bottom in their whole history. And it was just trying to keep the culture up. Like I said, we had really good people, but we wanted it to be a great place to work, even though we're having some challenges off the field and on the field. We just wanted to keep the vibrancy up, so it was a great place to work and, have faith, stick fat to the plan. The plan was to rebuild the club. So, yeah, we made some changes and stuck to it, and we're starting to see some of that success now.
You've been in the AFL system for a long time, but in Melbourne, and there's probably international listeners wondering what the difference between, Melbourne and Adelaide is. Being the Crows, being one of two teams in Adelaide, what are some of the differences that make Adelaide as a sports town unique, but also the Crows unique in that in Adelaide itself?
Well, I've gone from a state, strangely, especially for international listeners, that had 10 teams in the one state. So you're one of 10, and it is amazing that the industry is able to, I suppose, afford and have enough support to be able to have 10 teams in one state. But you were a number, but it was well supported. Now I've come to an equally footy mad state, and they are as passionate fans as I'll ever come across, both Crows and Port Adelaide, our crosstown rival. And, yeah, I probably underestimated how the intensity of the media here, just how focused they were on footy, be it through all the different mediums. I know when I came across, I was a bit nervous about sort of being thrown into the deep end in terms of the media and how that would go. And the board here said that it'd be a soft landing. But I remember my first sort of press conference here. It was a live feed onto all the news stations here. They said I'd do a couple of radio interviews. I did 8 over the first 24 hours. It was just they've just got an insatiable appetite for footy in this state, and it took a while to get used to, but now I just think it's a positive. I don't see it as a negative in any way. There's so much to utilise out of being such a profile and the biggest sporting brand in the state, and what you can use for it. When you're under pressure, there's nowhere to hide, but that's just part of it, and that's why we love it. There's some ups and downs, and when pressure comes, we have to navigate it. But that's part of the industry. But there's no doubt. It feels like there's a sharper focus here.
Definitely, and you've got the passionate Crows fans that fuel that fire. That's why the media keeps the intensity on, because you've got such a passionate fan base. One of the questions I wanted to ask, some people misconstrue CEO as a chief everything officer, but like you said, with your opportunities at the Hawks, making sure your staff get good breadth of skills. How do you, one, help develop staff, but also make sure that you've got the right people advising you on, you're not an expert on everything. How do you work with your executive and your team to make sure that you're covered in all aspects?
One thing I've worked out pretty quickly now I'm in the chair is that I need the best people around me. I need experts of all the disciplines across the field. So I lean heavily on my people. I find that there's not enough hours in the day. If I want to deep dive into certain areas, I want to influence, set the standards and set the culture. But it is about having the right people in the right seats. So having the right executive team around you has been really, really important. And in terms of, I like to think I'm a people developer. I've got a strong belief if people don't grow, they will go. So I put time into my executive leaders, but also the next tiers. Who's the rising stars? Give people opportunities. I was afforded opportunities, I think, before I was ready, and it actually made me as the administrator I am today. And I'll always be thankful for that. And I want to be able to create a path for my people so that they can see, yes, they can come in, start at the membership call centre, but if they do a great job, they're passionate, they live our values, that they can work their way up to the executive. So I want to show a path at this footy club. I want to invest in our people and make it a great place to work.
Terrific. One of the projects you are working on is the Button Oval project, which is to find and build out a new facility. There probably is a little bit of deja vu for you in the similar timeline and what you achieved at the Hawks. Tell us a little bit about that project and where it's at and why it's so important to the Crows.
The facility project has been ultra important for the Crows. We're currently at the old West Lakes facility, so we're a little bit out of town. This is where we used to play our games up until the end of 2014. Now we've moved to Adelaide Oval, which is just a wonderful venue in the city, which is great. We've had a few different tries at different potential sites across the city. We've landed on this Theberton site. I probably don't need to go into the detail of it, but it's a $100 million project. It'd be elite training and admin facility. We want it to be the best in the country. We want it to be the best in this league. And we've been designing it to be that over the last sort of 12 months. We got a number of different stakeholders, including our players, including our medical team, our high performance team. We want it to be the best of the best for our players, staff and coaches. And we want it to be a home ground for our women's team as well. So it's multifaceted. It will be a home for training during the week, Monday to Friday, I guess, as well as a home ground venue on the weekend. And we're also trying to get a second training space in another reserve just out the back. So it's been a focus of ours. Like I sort of said with the Hawks, we're starting to build this wonderful culture at the Crows. We've got a great coach. We've got a good core of young players coming through, but we want to attract more talent here, and we want to retain a lot of the Victorian talent that's coming to play for us. We want them to want to be part of our club and stay at our club long term. And I think, and I've known that having a wonderful facility with a great culture, it goes a long way to it. And it might only be 1% or 2%, but I think as a footy club, we need to have one of the best facilities in the country so we can attract and retain that talent.
Footy is a very results, like all sports, a result-based business, wins and losses. But do you think a project like this lengthens the lens and makes everyone at the club look a bit further out and seeing what that precinct, what that facility, what that precinct, what it will offer the club longer term, and sort of not just, hey, what's going to happen this year?
No doubt, this is a legacy project. Like I said, we've been around for 33 years, and we've been in the one spot for that entire time. This is an intergenerational project that's going to set our club up for the next 50 or 100 years. Not only do we want a place where the best players and staff can be, and we're going to have this wonderful home ground, we want to be able to grow on it. We want it to be a place where our members, fans, all supporters can come and congregate, feel part of the club, that they will go to during the week and rub shoulders, deal with our members and our fans. It is more than just a place. It's going to be our home. It's going to be a home not only for our employees and our staff and our players. It's going to be a home for the entire club. So it's a legacy project. It's going to be the pinnacle. It's going to be our base, and we want to attract the best people to it.
And part of that project, have you sort of been, over the years looking at different facilities, whether they be, in Australia and what different AFL clubs are doing or NRL clubs are doing, but then also looking at, what's happening in Europe or what NFL teams are doing? Are you trying to get the best of each one and see how that can be part of the project you're developing?
Yes, no doubt. I've been across myself a couple of years ago. We've sent our architects and our project team internationally, and we've also looked at probably the top 5 or 6 here in Australia over the most recent 5 to 6 months. So we feel like we've seen the best of the best. Now we want to customise it to what we want and what we feel we need. So we've taken bits and pieces from a number of different sports, and as well as a number of different clubs here in Australia, But now the hardest part is just being able to find what best suits us, what's actually going to help foster the good culture that we already have, and what's going to make us cutting edge compared to other clubs and other sports around the country. So there's a lot of stakeholders involved and a lot of views, and I feel like we're designing something that's got a burger with a lot, and it's going to be the best of the best. Yep. But I also have to put my hat on is that we can't keep spending money, so we just got to prioritise what's a need versus what's a want. But I'm really confident that we'll deliver something special here in South Australia.
And is that one of the biggest things that has developed in your time in sport, in the fact that, you know, more clubs are building at their own bespoke facilities and looking for, you know, that, like you said, that 1% edge that might retain a player, that might help with injury recovery, that makes sure that, you know, your star player makes it back for finals? Is that sort of where the battlefield is now being fought?
It does seem a little bit that way. It seems like it's the arms race to some extent, and we've probably got to be careful as an industry that, you know, we do this responsibly. But like I said before, it's a percent or two, and it's a legacy piece. There's opportunities through government fundings at the moment with that smashing of the escalation really of women's sports that's been able to. All these different sports need to customise their facilities to have equal facilities. So the opportunity is now, and clubs are taking advantage of it. So, look, it has been a change, but in my 20 years in footy, that's been one change. But the whole business of sport has sort of turned on its head. You know, if I look at even your space that you're obviously across in detail, but the digital landscape of sport has just changed immensely. Like when I first started, there wasn't a digital team. There was just a comms person, really, and just the membership numbers, how you engage with your people, and like, if I'm honest as well, that the money in sport is just like TV broadcasts, etc. How much there's just such a great percentage of revenue comes through the broadcaster, and you need to work with them because they're a key stakeholder. But how many eyeballs are on sport then continues to grow the commercials of it. So the business of sport has just evolved and grown incredibly in my 20 years.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, even looking at the project itself, the fact it's going to be a facility where the AFLW is going to play, like that focus of what's the venue going to be like for fans? How can we engage our members there? How can we have functions there? Again, even 15, 20 years ago, those facilities were being, how can we have the best gym? How can we have the high altitude room? That was really high performance focus, but really now, you know, the members drive so much of the growth of clubs. You know, catering for them in these facilities is something that's new.
No doubt, and that's what makes it so difficult when you're designing, because you're designing for it's a boutique. It'll be a boutique stadium, but there's going to be 10,000 people potentially there of a weekend. How do you design your corporate facilities? Where is your punter going to stand behind the goals? Where is the seating going to be? Where's the corporate facilities? There's going to be a member cafe. Where's that going to be positioned? It is there's all sorts of things, and the boardroom needs to have a wonderful view. There's all these different pieces in the mix. But, like I said before, we've done 12 months of schematic design. We feel like we're in a reasonable spot. We're about to lock our designs in. And, we're hoping to start the build over the next 12 months.
Terrific. I know you've got another meeting, so I'm going to wrap this one up. I've got the Sports Geek closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
I don't remember it, but my mum used to always tell me that I went to my first AFL or VFL sporting event, St Kilda versus the South Melbourne, it would have been. That's how long ago the South Melbourne team relocated to Sydney at Lake Oval when I was 10 days old. And she
well, that's a fair enough reason for not remembering it, but that is a fair way back. Do you have you would have been a lot of sports events in your time. Do you have a favourite food or a favourite food memory at a sports event?
Favourite food, I'm probably going to embarrass myself by saying this, but through my job, I get to go to amazing dinners, restaurants, inner sanctum events, and get looked after. And I'm trying to keep an eye on my waistline and not eat desserts at the moment. That's my new focus. It's not always working. But, when I go to the football, it's a pie with sauce.
I should get a sponsorship with Balfour's. The amount of times pie and sauce gets a mention. I look forward to that. What's the first app you open in the morning?
My first app that I open in the morning would be it's just Twitter. I know I'll probably get criticised for that, but it is something where it's just a way for me to consume my news. It seems to know me and what I'm looking for. So Twitter is mine, as well as the Advertiser now, which is the local paper here.
Yeah, you haven't come round to calling it X yet. You're still calling it Twitter.
I just look at it and I think I'm pressing something wrong. It feels like it's X-rated and I'm pressing the wrong button. But I'm not calling it X. No.
No, it's a bit that way. Is there someone that you either follow? Might be an author, it might be someone you read, or colleagues doing terrific stuff that the podcast listeners should give a follow, and why?
Podcast followers, look, probably in terms of sporting teams, I've looked at sort of Man City a little bit, and definitely LA Chargers. They're the two sporting teams that I've looked at pretty closely, and both because they're high quality and they dare to be different. And in terms of what do I like in podcasts at the minute, I'm an old sports nut, so I really love listening to Howie Games, which is an Australian broadcaster who interviews different sporting people on their journey, and I get really inspired by a lot of those stories.
Terrific. Well, we'll wrap things up. Lastly, what social media platform is your MVP? What's your go-to platform?
What's my go-to platform? I should have researched these questions. I think I'm going to say Twitter or X again. But my kids are just hitting the tween age, so that they're just hitting teenagers. So maybe I'm starting to turn that. I think Instagram is the one that potentially I'll be able to consume the news that I want, but also be more across the time. So my daughter would be happy that I said that. No
problems, Tim. And I always ask people who are listening to the podcast if they enjoyed it, got some value out of it, to reach out to the guests and say thank you. What is there a platform that is best for them to do so?
Look, come to the Crows website would be the best way, and I'm sure we'll put a link on that you can contact Tim Silver's CEO here direct, and I'd love to have some feedback, and love speaking to people about sport and people in the industry and what their journey is, and I can give them a little bit about mine, and hopefully we can connect that way if possible.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Really do appreciate it. All the rest for the rest of the season, but and also all the best for the project and the facility. Look forward to taking a tour once it opens.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate your time. It was an awesome 30 minutes. Thanks a lot.
Learn from the Sports Geek Amplify Season 2 cohort. Trajectory, Xtonet, SeatGeek, Sponsor CX, and Stats Perform. For more, go to sportsgeekamplify.com.
Thanks again to Tim. You can reach out to Tim Silvers on LinkedIn. I'll be linking to him when I share this episode. As always, please reach out. Tell the guests that you've listened to the episode, maybe what insights you gathered. I really do appreciate it when listeners reach out to guests and say thank you for the time that they've given up. If you want to check out more about the facility project, you can check it out at crowsfacility.com.au to check out what that new facility is going to look like. I'm looking forward to seeing it when it does open. Before I wrap up, I just want to talk a little bit about digital workshops, how we run them, how they've changed over the years, what they could do for your team. The good thing is these digital workshops can happen in real life. Happy to travel, come to your offices, come to your location to work with your team. But also, we now live in a world where people are okay jumping on Zooms and video calls and the like, and we've been able to facilitate some of these in a remote setting. So these sessions sometimes can be one-on-one with your key leaders, your key digital team leaders, people driving the strategy, giving them a sounding board and sort of keeping it at that strategic level, or diving in and helping facilitate sessions with your overall team. And that might be people who are on the tools, whether they be your photographers, your videographers, your content all-rounders, discussing them on what is your content process, how can it be improved, or moving more into, brainstorming sessions, what should the next content strands be, what are things that other teams and leagues are doing internationally that you could potentially bring in. I do say steal with pride a lot. How can you apply that with your team? And then the other piece is, a real big part of digital to dollars is those commercial reviews. So, looking over everything that you've done from a digital point of view, maybe across the season or across a particular channel, and look for commercial opportunities, how it can be branded, how it can be pitched to a sponsor, how it can be potentially tweaked. So it still works for the fans, but then potentially you might come up with something that also works for your partners. So if you're interested in that, if that's something you think your team needs or would like, or you want a fresh perspective on what you're doing, please reach out to me, Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. Send me a message, send me a LinkedIn DM. Happy to work with podcast listeners. I have over the years, so really would like it. And then before I wrap up, don't forget my mentoring office hours are still open, offering up a quick phone call to help people who are transitioning, trying to find a new job, trying to break into the scene. I've had a few conversations in previous weeks. It's been really good. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/office hours to book in a time if you just want to have a chat and say, hey, I want to get to this part of the sports industry, or I'd like some advice. And if I can help, like I said, I love helping podcast listeners. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Looking to help your digital or sponsorship team? Book in for a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan to help your team level up. Book now at sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.